1 in 5 suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. We are Marla and Dave. I'm Marla, and then in the far side of your screen, you will see Dave.
Dave, that's me. Hey. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I want to remind you to text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 and support our A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign. We need you. We can't actually keep bringing you this great content, these stories of impact without your help. So please text to 818-698-1021. Today, we're bringing you an impact story. Our guest is Susan Adams. She works as a software technical support specialist, but she is much more than that. And she has an amazing story that starts all the way back in 1972 at a Wayne Newton concert, of all things. And it starts with the song, Daddy, Don't Walk So Fast. I know that sounds like a strange way to start the show, but Susan is going to actually tie this all together for us because she has an amazing story, like I already mentioned. And it's something that I feel is going to not only be impactful, but be helpful to many who continue to watch these shows on YouTube and are watching live right now. Her story continues through situational depression, which can sometimes lead to clinical depression. When we come back, we'll speak to Susan Adams, and we'll hear all about her amazing story.
We'll
be right back.
When Dave and Marla get it together.
Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley believe it doesn't take much to make life a little better for our neighbors, coworkers, friends, our family members, even our children who suffer with mental illness. When you support our A Dollar Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign, you are doing your part to erase the stigma surrounding mental illness. For just $1 today, or $1 a day for 1 week, just $7, we can look forward to a future that does not include the unfortunate and uncomfortable stares, bullying, and the subsequent isolation that our loved ones who suffer with brain differences deal with. Text the word GIVE, that's G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 to donate. A dollar today keeps the stigma away. Brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley.
As David said right before the break, we welcome Susan Adams to our show. Susan, welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
Thank you.
Susan, it was.
I gotta go straight here, Dave. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I have to. The impact of a Wayne Newton song. Can we just start with that?
Well, you have to know the lyrics to the Wayne Newton
Well, you're going to tell us.
The chorus is, Daddy, don't you walk so... It's around a guy who's leaving his family. They have split up, and he had introduced this song at this concert in 1972. And the chorus is, Daddy, don't you walk so fast. Daddy, don't you walk so fast. Daddy, please slow down because you're making me run. Daddy, don't you walk so fast. So, just a heart-tearing song, and you can just envision this little 2 or 3 year old child running after her father. And I had gone to that concert with my father at that time. I was a teenager, and I was always an emotional child, and it had affected me. But fast forward, like I said, that was in 72. Fast forward to 2007. My partner and I had, both of us had always wanted to have children, but in our youth had not been in any relationships that could have children, that could support children. So we both ended up, we decided that we become foster parents. And from 2007 to 2008, we went through the steps to become foster parents here in Phoenix. And in September of 2008, we got 2 beautiful foster kids. They were a brother and sister. The sister was 2 years old and the brother was 6 months old.
Wow.
And they were just adorable. We connected with them immediately. Their mother, they were on track to be reunited with their mother. So we were very careful about, how we were working with them. And it turned out that they were supposed to return back to their mother in December. That date came and went, and the state was not allowed to tell us why. There was, privacy laws. So we didn't know why. We could only suspect things. And then fast forward to February of 2009, unfortunately, Mary passed away. She contracted MRSA. And with everything that was going on in our lives, she was a second grade teacher at the time. And the children, we were having issues with the children with, allergies to formula and pneumonia, all kinds of different, childhood things that, just life. And she ended up passing away. And because they were still on track to go back to their mother, I didn't want to put them back in foster care. So I kept them with me. I had the help of Mary's niece to help me for a little bit. And after Mary's niece went back home, I was able to let the state allowed me to connect with their mother. Right. And so on the weekends, I would go pick up their mother, and we would go do, weekend things together, and then, take her back home. And then when they did finally go back to her in July of that year, I still stayed in their lives. I was in there when their mother gave birth to the next child. I was in the delivery room. I had just completely bonded with this family.
Yeah.
And fast forward to 2010, things took a turn for the worse, and their mother went back into her, unfortunately, drug habits, and the kids were then taken away permanently from their mother. Well, because of that, they were also taken away from me after being in their lives for 2 years and
a full caregiver. I mean, in other words, just completely connected.
Oh, yes, very much bonded. And I knew intellectually, that the parents the new foster parents could either include me or ask me to stay away. And it was not my choice. I was, but I knew I had to accept whatever they said. And they did allow me to see them a couple times. And the first time I spent the whole day with them. And the little girl would say to me, "I'm going to run away." She never said that when she was around us. And she would, when I went to drop her off, she would tell me, she kept telling me all day, "I hate them, I hate them." Good news is, I tell you, the happy ending, let me fast forward real quick to that. That family adopted them. They are very happy living in Quebec, Canada. Wow. And they are now flourishing as 17 and 16-year-old children. So amazing. That's a fabulous ending to that story.
So Susan, did you get and I'm just following your story. Yeah. Was the third baby born? Did I miss something? Was that baby also included in your care? No. Or okay?
Well, you have to. No, the third child was actually raised by her father.
Okay.
Her father's family.
Right. The paternal family. The paternal family. Right. Took the baby. Okay. Yes.
And the paternal family was available. The other two paternal families were not.
Right. Okay.
And these two had to. I would go to the court proceedings because I wanted to make sure that those two stayed together, because anytime that she didn't know where he was, that really bothered her. I needed to make sure they stayed together.
Right.
Yeah, and there was no way for you to appeal.
I'm sorry?
There was no way for you to appeal to, as the previous foster parent, that they come back to you. That's not how the system works.
I could have if I felt I was capable. But I was 52 years old. I was single. I could not have done it without the support of Mary.
Got it.
And Mary was gone. I mean, when we had decided to become foster parents, we had this conversation that I know when the kids go away, I'm the one that's going to lose it. But she was a second grade teacher. She had separation every year.
Right.
So we knew that she was going to be able to help me
Got
through
it.
the
rough times.
separation. So, and, we made a good team in doing it, but unfortunately, that's not the way it worked out. And that time that I had the whole day when I had to go to give her to the parents, she hung on to my neck so tight that they had to pull her away from me. And I wasn't, I knew intellectually. In fact, on the way home, I called my best friend. I said, "You need to talk me off this ledge. I know I'm doing right, but it's killing me."
Right. That's very traumatic.
I worked through that. Fast forward again, about 2 or 3 years later, things turn around for me. I am now working at a place I've been working with for now since 2012. I've become very, appreciated where I am. I've got a really good job. I enjoy it. But I saw one day an advertisement for Wayne Newton. And immediately
it triggered
the song of Daddy Don't You Walk So Fast triggered. And in my mind, the song's playing over in my head, and the picture of the memory of Maria around my neck is
wow.
And for 2 weeks, I couldn't get the song out of my mind, and I couldn't stop crying. I'd go into my office, close my door, and I finally said, I've got to get something, So I got my doctor to prescribe antidepressants, and I have been on them ever since.
So that was a triggering situation for you. So you had not experienced any depression or anything of the sort prior to that. Hold that thought right there, Susan. We're going to be right back with more conversation. This is a very interesting story for a lot of reasons, and we're anxious to hear more. We'll be right back after this break.
Okay.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Last year was 2022, and in the United States, 11.1% of adults with a diagnosed mental illness remained uninsured. That's over 5.5 million adults in the most powerful and affluent country in the world. This should be an outrage.
Whether or not you choose to hold social, economic, or political pressures responsible for the increase of U.S. adults diagnosed with mental illness or not, there was a 0.5% increase in adults diagnosed with mental illness without insurance from the previous year's data. This is the first time that this indicator has increased since the passage of the Affordable Care Act, or since President Obama was in office.
The state with the highest percentage of adults diagnosed with a mental illness who are uninsured last year was Texas, and that was at 21.5%.
The amount of daily stress adults in the United States has increased. Maybe it's time for us to stop focusing on what divides us and instead focus on challenges that we are all forced to deal with together, like our overall mental wellness.
This message is brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically live my personality on my scene.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
Wow. Okay, so
we are back, and Susan, the story was it just had us sort of just wrapped around every word that you were actually saying, because it's that, as you describe it, it's almost a palpable feeling of the connection between the lyrics of that song and this picture of your foster child just hanging onto your neck. And so you were describing how that kind of sent you down into a spiral. Was that considered situational depression at the time? What was the diagnosis that allowed your doctor to give you prescribe the antidepressants?
Oh, I said I'm depressed. I have to say, the doctor, excuse me.
No problem.
The doctor that I have, he is actually a doctor that I have had for many, many, many years, and he was with me. I was with him actually when Mary passed away, and so he was my GP at the time, and now he's my bariatric doctor that I go to. We're trying to fight my weight issues, but so he's very empathetic. He understands, it wasn't, I mean, there wasn't any test or anything. He just said, well, let me put it this way too, though. After Mary died, he had also prescribed antidepressants for me at that time. So, over the years, I have had depression. I have depression in my family. My grandfather spent 3 years in the hospital right after the Depression.
But it sounds like
after his brother committed suicide, my father was diagnosed with clinical depression.
Right.
And so I have a family history of it, and so I'm sensitive to it.
Right.
But I don't know that I have clinical depression.
Right. I was going to say that just listening. But yeah. Go ahead.
But I'm not stopping my antidepressants because since 2007, my mother died, then Mary died, then things happened with the kids.
Right.
And there's enough that antidepressants help me have a nice day.
Yeah, those situational overloads. Yeah. Well, that's another thing that's a flag to be discussed, and I say it's a flag to be discussed. Because, I like to describe anyone's personal journey and path to finding mental peace or balance is honestly, it's like our youngest daughter. She has a vitamin D deficiency. Well, the effect of that vitamin D deficiency looks like this, but with the vitamin D supplement, then you feel perfectly normal. So, balancing yourself out, certain people, it can be done with certain things. And I can only listen to your story and say to myself, those are seriously impactful situations. A death, grieving, the loss of your children, just the love that you had. The bottom line is those separation things that are that's trauma. You're describing trauma. And most of us, have a hard time self-managing, through those things, but we don't want to call it what it is. So I'm glad that you took the time to say to your doctor, hey, this is a lot.
Yeah. Well, when you're crying, I give it, I think you have to, there's a time that you have to say, is it just a couple of days that I'm blue? Or is it going to is it continuing?
Right.
When it's 2 weeks where you can't stop crying, where you can't get the thoughts out of your mind that are making you cry, no matter what those thoughts are. If you, for a year and a half after the kids were taken out of my life, I spent on a couch in Maricopa, Arizona, and 6 months of that was in Maricopa, but I really went down this really dark hole, and I found myself going back down that hole. What got me out of that hole, I should say, is because I got back into life and got a job working for someone else. At the time when the kids were taken out of my life, I was working for myself. And so then it was easy enough that I kind of let grief take me down that hole.
Right.
So then I got to a point that I said, okay, I've got to find a job. And I also believe in timing is everything. And amazingly, I had just lost the opportunity for a couple of jobs. I not lost the opportunity, but I have interviewed for a couple of jobs. They had not come through. And then I'm online looking at an old law firm I had worked for before. an old job of mine was open.
Wow.
And I sent them a note and said, I can do this job. And timing, I found out later that they had gone and said, Susan Adams wants this job, and they said, hire her. So, I was as low as I could be. I was 2 weeks away from losing my house. And then I get the job after being out of work for a year and a half. So that started my road back up. But it wasn't until I got triggered that I said, I need to get medication now, because then I couldn't get myself out.
Right.
Yeah. It was threatening to become a cycle. And so I applaud you for, like Marla was saying, for taking the steps to actively address what you were feeling. And, like I was saying in the beginning or earlier in the show, situational depression, studies have shown, can lead to clinical depression, and sometimes vice versa. So, and you mentioned that you had a depression in your family history. And you mentioned that your grandfather was in the hospital for a few years.
No, he was in bed for 3 years. They took him to Johns Hopkins, and they could never. Okay. They couldn't figure it out. But you have to understand, that was back right after the depression hit.
Right.
And that's kind of where I was going. So the way that mental health is managed, even by healthcare professionals, has changed pretty drastically since that time. So I can only imagine the things that your grandfather was going through. Was anyone in your family, did you mention, was diagnosed with clinical depression?
My father was.
Yes.
And so was that something that you saw him struggle with throughout as you were growing up? And how did that affect you?
Well, empathetically, it affected me, but I've always been. I'm the quintessential middle child, so I've always been introspective, because middle children kind of go into themselves,
right?
And I'm not going to act like that, because that happened to me, so now I won't act like that now. That happened to me, so now I won't act like that now. And I was blamed for that, so now so you kind of go into yourself, and you kind of learn to be self-analytical, I think. And I come from a family of very self-reflective people. At least some of my relatives are. So it's a family joke. I have a niece. A niece of mine she has a degree, and she's a counselor. And she said, I said, congratulations on being a psychologist. She said, well, somebody in the family had to do it. I said, yeah, that's true.
I love that. And the thing that I love most about it is that, there seems to be a sort of a normalcy to how you approach mental wellness, which is something that I think is lacking in our society today, and something that really we here at Mental Health Mondays, both Marla and I and everyone associated with it, are trying to end that stigma, so that if you feel something, you can address it without feeling like it's going to end your life. And you seem to be thriving pretty well right now, so kudos to you.
Well, that's the thing too, is that everybody, as your life goes along, you're on the continuum.
Right.
And at one time you can be really down low, but when you get down low, the next time that low, you could even get down that low, but it's not going to feel that low, because you're going to understand where you are.
So, Susan, I'm holding my hand up just 1 second, because this is such a great point. We're going to come back in right after this break, and I want you to continue that thought. We'll be right back.
All right.
Wait.
That music lets us know.
Wait.
Marla's gonna. Are you whipping your hair back and forth? Oh, nice. I like it. That music. Now, Susan, we can't hear the music, but in the studio, there's very festive music playing, and that music lets us know that it's.
Go, Susan! Go, Susan!
I love it. It's time for our poll question. Now, last week, our poll question was, with the rise in U.S. adults with anxiety and depressive disorder, it now rivals the prevalence of what other chronic health issue? Here are a few chronic health issues, and which one does the rise in anxiety and depressive disorder rival? Does it rival obesity? Does it rival heart disease? Or does it rival cancer? Now, I can't remember what our guest said last week, but Susan, we would love for you to take a crack at it. With the rise in the U.S. adults with anxiety and depressive disorder, it now rivals the prevalence of what other chronic health issue? Obesity, heart disease, or cancer?
I'm going to say heart disease.
Okay, well, that was pretty close because that's pretty high up there, but it actually now rivals obesity.
Yes.
Obesity, okay.
Which is something that we deal with in our country. Now, Marla, what's the poll question for next week?
The poll question next week is, what percentage of U.S. adults suffer from anxiety disorders? 19%, 27%, or 34%? We're going to give our guest, Susan, the first crack at this. What percentage of U.S. adults suffer from anxiety disorders? 19%, 27%, or 34%?
I say 34.
All right. Well,
awesome.
We've heard what you've had to say, and you're going to have to come and find out whether that's right or wrong next week, Susan.
Absolutely. And remember, you guys, please text the word GIVE to 818-698-1021, and we will get right back to our conversation with Susan.
Be right back. All right, we're I'm throwing the ball. Boop, back to you, Susan.
So we can't believe I remember what I was saying. I was just saying, though, that everyone goes through a continuum through their life of emotion and mental health. And at one time you can be low and another time you can be high. I believe in relativity. I believe that as low as you are, when you come back out of it, you're going to be that high. And I hang on to that.
Awesome.
Well, Susan, unfortunately, we are getting close to the end of the show. And I know that you speak about seeking help without judgment. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that before we go?
Well, I think that it's important that people, when they feel they need to get help, get it. Even if you feel like you're going to be judged, you're not. No one, hopefully you have a best friend that you can, broach it with, and they won't judge you and help you get there. But it's nothing to be judged for.
Well, I think the good thing about what you're saying is, I like to say it in a different way, and that is, especially when you're going through an emotional or mental health issue, the feeling that you're going to be judged is always much more intense than the actual judgment that you may probably won't encounter. And
you're probably the one doing the judgment.
That's coming from the inside. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Marla?
No, I just think that it's all just amazing because I think that, she used a word, which I agree, that there's a continuum of, when it comes to behavior and wellness and, your mental balance. And the key is to let yourself off the hook. When you're not feeling balanced, go ahead and reach out and take the advice or take the prescription of someone who is trained to help you come back to your balance, whether that be medication, whether it be talk therapy, whether that be saging your room, like whatever. There's so many different approaches and ways, and that's because there's so many different people, and that's because all of us need help at one point or another in our lives. And so that's what we're doing here on Mental Health Monday, and I'm glad that we could have Susan to speak with us because we're trying to join hands and lock arms with every shared story and everybody who has been through and has come out on the other side or may currently be going through. We want to be here for you because the message that we have here on Mental Health Mondays and in our lives experientially is you're not alone.
All right.
You're absolutely not alone, and it's that feeling that is asphyxiating for most people who are suffering.
And there is another side.
Susan, we actually are rejoicing with you at seeing your smiling face, and to let everyone know, and what it says to us is that there's always hope on the other side. So go ahead and seek help if you need help. someone, especially as we are associated with NAMI. NAMI is one of the largest resources for mental health issues. Reach out. There's a chapter near you.
And solutions.
You can always call us at Love and Beyond Reason. The information's right there. So many people out there want to help you, so reach out. Susan, again, thank you so much for joining us today. We want to tell all you guys that watching at home that there's some changes coming to Mental Health Mondays. We're going to spice the show up a little bit, sort of keep it focused on impact and how the stories of people like Susan and can help us learn things and learn how to live a much better life as we approach our mental wellness. Thank you. See you next time.
See you later.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered.